Emily and Thomas had always been drawn to the strange and mysterious. When they stumbled upon the old Victorian manor on the edge of town, it felt as though it called to them. The house had been abandoned for decades, the walls crumbling, the windows shattered. It was perfect for their dream wedding, a place shrouded in history, whispers of old tales, and echoes of the dead. But no one told them the house held more than just old memories. The day of the wedding was like something out of a nightmare. The guests were few, mainly close friends who had braved the sinister stories of the house. They stood awkwardly, glancing over their shoulders as if the walls were watching. Emily walked down the aisle, her white dress glowing faintly in the dim light, while Thomas waited at the altar, his eyes locked on her. The air felt heavy, as though the very atmosphere was thick with something unseen. The minister began the vows, but with every word, a cold breeze seemed to whip through the room, carrying faint whispers that none could understand. As Emily and Thomas exchanged rings, the candles around the room flickered violently. The breeze that had been faint before now turned into a gust, blowing through the crowd as though something unseen was moving among them. Then, from the corners of the room, shadowy figures began to appear, faint at first, like smudges on the edge of reality. No one could quite place what was wrong until one of the guests screamed, "They're here! Look behind you!" The figures, translucent and gaunt, stood watching, silent witnesses to the union. The priest hesitated for a moment, but continued the ceremony. As the final words were spoken, "Until death do you part," a chill settled over the room. The temperature dropped dramatically, and the guests began to shiver. Emily felt something cold grasp her hand, not Thomas's warm touch, but something colder, something otherworldly. She looked down and saw a pale hand reaching out from the floorboards, clutching her wrist. Suddenly, the walls groaned as if the house itself was alive. The floor creaked beneath them, and the ghostly figures became clearer, circling the newlyweds, whispering something inaudible but terrifying. Emily screamed, but the words died in her throat as she felt her body being pulled downward, as though the floor beneath her was giving way. Panic broke out among the guests. They rushed for the exits, but the doors slammed shut as if the house had no intention of letting them leave. The windows shattered, and dark, misty tendrils snaked through the room, wrapping around anything living. One by one, the guests vanished into the mist, their screams echoing in the house's haunted halls. Thomas grabbed Emily, pulling her toward the door, but the ghostly figures blocked their path. The figures, once mere shadows, now had faces, faces of those who had perished in the house over the centuries. Their eyes glowed with malice, and their mouths twisted into cruel, silent smiles. The ghosts surrounded the couple, but they did not attack. Instead, they spoke in unison, their voices overlapping in a chorus of deathly whispers. "You have taken vows in this house. Now you belong to it." Emily and Thomas froze, paralyzed by terror. The figures loomed closer, the chill of their presence seeping into the newlyweds' bones. In their panic, they realized the truth: they had been tricked. The house had lured them in, made them take vows not to each other, but to it. They were married to the dead. Years passed, or so it seemed. The house became quiet once again, with no one daring to approach. But if anyone had, they would have seen two figures in the shadows, wandering the halls. Emily and Thomas were still there, their once vibrant faces now pale and cold, their eyes hollow like the ghosts that had trapped them. They had become part of the house, bound to it forever, repeating their vows in the dark, cold silence, while the ghosts of the house watched and waited for more souls to join their eternal wedding. It is said that on certain nights, the wind carries whispers from the old manor. Those foolish enough to listen will find an invitation to a wedding they can never leave. And once you step through the doors, you become part of the ghostly procession, another lost soul in the house that never lets go. Will you be the next guest?